Welcome back. Now under Python basics, the next topic is Introduction to Functions. In this topic, we'll see what is a function, what are the different types of functions. We learn about two important built-in variables known as name and main. We learn about the built-in functions and we explore two important built-in functions, that is input-output functions. Now let us start with this session. Functions. See, functions are the most fundamental building blocks in programming, especially your programming language is procedural language. Then fundamental building blocks of your programming languages are functions. See, large programs are often difficult to manage and we are going to divide them into smaller units known as functions. See, functions are sometimes known as methods or procedures. Please note that. Of course, in Python, we'll be using these two names, like we can call them as methods as well as functions, my dear friends. What is the advantage of functions? See, obviously, functions divide the large program into smaller units. Okay, that is, it modularizes the program. Okay, and when you divide it into smaller units, obviously the readability will be improved. And when you divide a particular task, suppose if that particular task need to be redone, you just need to call that particular function. Instead of rewriting the entire code, just call that particular function. So it improves the code reusability. And suppose if a same task need to be repeated 10 times, we are just calling the function, we are not writing the code. Means what? It reduces the size of the code. And it is very simple for you to debug the program also. See, instead of writing the entire program at one place, if you divide into smaller chunks or smaller pieces, if there is any error in one part, it is easy for you to check that particular portion. Okay, so debugging becomes easier. And one more important thing is, suppose there are functions of similar type, you can collect them into one module. Okay, so we can create libraries. Clear? So in Python, generally it happens like this. Functions are collected into modules. The modules are collected into packages. So you'll be using these terms like modules and packages. Don't worry about this. In a very simple sense. So all like functions and variables are collected into modules, and all these similar modules. Okay, all the modules used for similar applications are, packaged into packages. Is that clear? So that is the idea. So functions help you in building the libraries. And Python is known for its extensive standard library and, packages for various applications like data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, networking, etc. Clear? Now, let us talk about different types of functions in Python. See, functions in Python can be broadly categorized as built-in functions. See, these are the predefined functions built into the Python interpreter. So with the default Python installation, okay, you are going to get all these functions directly available for you. You can directly use these functions in your program. Then comes library module functions. See, these functions are not readily available. If you want to use this particular function, the module function, you have to import that particular module into your program. So these functions reside in external libraries or modules, and we can use these functions by importing those modules into your program. That is second type. The third type is the user-defined functions. The functions created by user, means the programmer, based on their requirement. Okay. See, here when we are learning programming, we learn how to create the functions on our own. Okay. See, if you learn how to create the functions on your own, suppose later on you are using some other functions from modules, then you look for the syntax of the function so that you can use the functions properly. Suppose if you don't learn how to create the function on your own, you will not understand the syntax, and sometimes you may wrongly use the functions in a module. Okay, so it is very important to learn how to create your own functions. See, in Python, for every activity, there is a module, there is a function. Okay, so we hardly write our own functions, okay, when you actually go for applications. But still, it is better to learn how to create the function so that you will understand the syntax, and whenever you are using any function, okay, for your application, you will understand the syntax and you properly give the arguments or inputs so that the function works properly. So that is about user-defined functions. Then comes other functions. There are some other functions like anonymous function, generator functions, decorator functions, etc. See, here it is just introduction to functions. Throughout this programming course, we will be talking about these functions again and again. And towards the end, we'll have a separate chapter on functions that is mainly writing Python programs. Okay, so there we'll explore the different types of functions. Okay, so here it is basically the introduction to functions. Okay, right. Now, let us talk about user-defined functions. See, user-defined functions means what, sir? Functions created by you for your specific purpose, okay, or the programmer. You means you or the programmer, whoever is using the function. Now look at this, the syntax of the function. Okay, see, the functions are defined using the keyword def. So def is a keyword. Okay, for defining the function, we are going to use this particular keyword. Okay, so we start with the keyword def followed by the function name. See, this particular function name should be a valid identifier. You already know about identifier, different identifiers, so it should be a valid identifier. Okay, then the parameter list. Okay, the different arguments which are passed externally to this particular function so that you can use within the function code. So the parameter list. Now, very importantly, the column. So at the end of this parameter list, after the parenthesis, you should write this colon. Okay, this is very important. Colon is very important. If you don't write it, it is a syntax error. Am I clear? So we can call this as the function header. This is your function header. So in the function header, what you will have? Def keyword. This is the name you created. Okay, create properly. Okay, then the parameter list depending on type of your function. So after that, you have this docstring. See, under basics, I already discussed about this, docstrings. After the comments, I discussed about the docstrings. Docstrings tells you about the syntax of the function. Suppose if later someone else is using, okay, your function, you are giving the description of your function. Okay, so what this function aimed for, what are the arguments it is going to take, what are the return. So you are going to describe your function in this particular docstring. Of course, for basic functions, you can skip. But if you are writing your advanced applications, writing docstring is a good programming practice. Of course, for our basic programming, this docstring part we generally skip. Okay, But please note, when you are going for advanced applications, this is very, very important. And this must be the first statement. Docstring is the first statement in your function definition. Okay, clear? Now, after that, this function body, it's a collection of statements. Okay, whatever work you want to do or the task you want to do within the function, you write down the corresponding statements. Okay, you can write sequential statements. Okay, or you can write control statements like selection statements, repetition statements, etc. So the function body goes here. Okay, so function is defined using the def keyword. The function name should be a valid identifier. A function header always end with a colon. So this colon is important, otherwise it is a syntax error. The code that makes up the function body is indented. This is very, very important because the code blocks in Python are defined by indentation. See, after this, function header, see here you see indentation. There generally this indentation is 4 spaces. Generally this indentation is 4 spaces. Okay. So all these statements are written with 4 spaces. Okay, indentation. And when this function body ends, the first unindented line tells you that it is the next statement after the function. It means your function ends here. Suppose your next statement comes here. The first unindented line, okay, tells you your function is complete. So your function is up to here. Please note this point, my dear friends. Okay, of course, we'll try to understand with examples. Clear? Now let us write down few simple functions to understand this better. Clear? Now I just given different types of user defined function. Of course, there are many more. We'll discuss later when we discuss functions in more detailed manner later on. Okay. Now let us start with some a few basic functions. Okay. So what is the first thing we need to write? Def keyword followed by the name of the function. Okay. So what is this function is doing? Function with no arguments and it is having no return value. See, there is an optional return value returned by the function. After this example, you will understand this return statement also. So I just give the name of this function as fun. And as it is mentioned, there are no arguments. Okay. And please don't forget writing this colon. See here, we are having 4 spaces. You can see this indentation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So this is common. So all the lines in the function, all the statements in the function must be to the same level. Okay, you cannot have one with 4 lines of indentation or 4 spaces indentation, other one with 3 spaces indentation. That is also syntax error. So please be careful. Okay. Now here what I am doing is I am just writing a print function. Okay. So what this function is doing, function with no argument and no return. So just let me print that. It is a function with no arguments and no return. Okay, like that. So done. This is my function. See, if you directly run this, nothing will happen, sir. If you directly run this, nothing will happen because just function definition happened. Okay, so Python will not execute this. Okay, it will just check for any syntax error. Suppose you missed this semicolon, it will tell you that there is a syntax error. So syntax error can be identified. So it will not be executed, sir. The Python interpreter just read the function for syntax errors. Okay, when this function will be executed when you call this particular function. Okay, so function execution, okay, it read the function, function execution starts from here. Suppose you call this particular function. Now what happened? You called this particular function is executed. So it is a function with no arguments and no return. Now let me take one more example. Okay, here what I do is I'll just take a same example so that you will understand all these different types of functions clearly. So here what I am doing is I am just adding 2 numbers. Okay. So I'll just call it as add function, colon. So what I'm doing is directly I add the two numbers. Suppose the two numbers are 4 and 5. 4 plus 5, and I print that directly. And here I am calling add function. So what is happening? This function is defined, and when you call add function without any arguments, so this function is called, it just prints this. So you get the output. So what is the sum or the addition of these two numbers? 9. Now, the next type of function is function with arguments but no return value. Function with arguments but no return value. So this time what I do is I create one more function, okay, and here I take the arguments AB. So the arguments are passed from function call. Clear? So here what I do, I print A plus B. See here in the function call, I am going to supply the values of AB. So 5, 4 values, I am going to, 4, 5. No problem, 5, 4 also will do the same stuff. Clear? See now, as in other programming languages, you don't have to mention it is integer, it is, nothing need to be done, sir. So it is taken care by Python interpreter. Okay. In Python, the most important property is Python is dynamically typed language. Of course, when you talk about data types and variables, we'll discuss more. Okay. So let us see the output, my dear friends. Okay. Okay. What is the error? Colon. Please be careful. Now, no arguments but return value. Now what we can do, I'll write this function add. Okay, here I am not sending any arguments, but what I do is I return, okay, the sum 5 plus 4. I'll return this. No need of putting any semicolons for this statement. Now what I do is, okay, I print add here. So what is happening here? This function is without any arguments, but it will return this value. So return statement gives you the value returned by that particular function. So what happened here? Again, colon. Please be careful. Okay, right. Now function with arguments and a return value. Colon. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to send the arguments and I want to send the value also. That is, arguments are passed and values are also returned. Clear? So now I print this add function with arguments 4 and 5. So we can have different types of functions. Function without any arguments and without any return value. Then we have function with arguments, but it does not return any value. We have function which does not take any argument, but it returns the value. Then we have functions, okay, with arguments and return value. Okay. So this is about your user defined functions, my dear friends.